Maximize your yields while spreading out your workload with the earliest maturing winter cereal. Visit kws.com/CA to see how our hybrid rye varieties can work for you. High yields, high quality, high value for your farm. KWS, seeding the future since 1856.
Now we're going to talk about an issue as it pertains to it's a broad issue, but I think it's going to have an impact on agriculture. And we're going to get the details here from a legal perspective. We're joined right now by Margot Patterson. She is counsel with Dentons, and she's a part of the regulatory practice group within the firm. Margot, great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's start broadly. I picked this up in the Globe and Mail. This is going back a couple months ago. Oil and gas industry very concerned. What is C-59?
So C-59 is a broad piece of legislation that was introduced some time ago. The issues that we're going to be discussing are a section of C-59, which are a package of amendments to the Competition Act. Now, the Competition Act, among other things, deals with advertising and marketing claims. And advertising and marketing claims are sort of communications and statements that businesses might make about their businesses, their products and services. And the changes that were introduced to the Act relate to what's broadly known as greenwashing. And so what has been done with the Competition Act is to provide more specific and expressly targeted prohibitions and standards with respect to making environmental claims about products, services, and business activities. And so as I can sort of delve into, the Competition Act always has had provisions with restrictions on, the clarity and accuracy of claims made about products and services. What's different now is that there is a focus on environmental claims and greenwashing, and new provisions that set out where the guardrails are, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but also the extent to which penalties can apply, what those penalties look like, and also the extent to which parties on the other side, that is, consumers, businesses, and stakeholders that have an interest in environmental concerns, can actually get involved in challenging claims made by businesses.
Now, I'm sure there's some. We don't want greenwashing. We don't, and there's probably some low-hanging fruit out there. Like, it's common sense. Yeah, that company or organization should not be claiming that because there's no way they could ever prove that. But to me, there's a whole bunch of gray area here where doesn't this set us up for a lot of activist lawsuits, frivolous sort of challenges, and then burdensome costs for companies having to prove what they're saying is actually statistically true? Or how do you see this?
I think that it's fair to say that the new provisions and the new focus on greenwashing has caught the attention of both businesses who are making claims in this area, and also stakeholders on the other sides, associations and activists who are sort of in the business, if you will, of monitoring what businesses are claiming and whether they can back them up. And so there will be, and I mean, what you haven't mentioned is that the Competition Bureau itself has signaled that the regulator is paying attention to this area as well. All of that means that, yes, there is the potential for a lot more scrutiny, a lot of more close watching of what businesses are saying about their products, services, and what they're doing on the environmental side. And there is now more of a framework for those who have an interest in making sure that those claims are true and getting involved and raising complaints and taking formal action to make sure that if there is a statement that's questionable or not supported or unfair, that is dealt with through the process that the Act sets out.
Have you looked comparatively to other jurisdictions, other countries? Are we getting in line with where other countries are dealing with this, or are we going above and beyond and setting a new bar when it comes to dealing with greenwashing?
It's certainly the case that other countries around the world have been looking at this space, the US and Europe, and have been having more of a legislative and enforcement focus around environmental claims, greenwashing, trying to set up a framework where there is some guidelines, both for the businesses and also for, consumers and others who are interested in this to know what is a fair comment, what kind of support is needed to make a statement. When we're talking about environmental claims, obviously sometimes the products, the services, the claims themselves can be very technical, can be very scientific. And so it is, yes, it is an international focus to make sure that there are some forms of standards or parameters in place, guidelines for everyone to know what's a proper statement about what somebody is doing, what's a proper statement about what a product can do, what the benefits are, etc. Above and beyond, I'd say that Canada is being fairly aggressive, but it's not. Canada's not an outlier in the respect that Canada is not operating in a vacuum. This definitely is an area that has been looked at and has been legislated in other countries as well.
We've seen oil and gas companies, take down posts from social media, scrubbing claims on their website already. That, made me think right away of the industry of agriculture and how it could potentially be impacted by this C49 or 59, sorry. What's your thoughts on that? Agriculture impacted, and some thoughts on just what we need to be aware of.
Yeah, definitely agriculture would be affected here. And it is important for associations within the space and businesses in the space to take some time to learn a bit more about what's going on in this space. And I can talk a little bit more about the next steps so that they can respond by either changing their policies around what's stated, making sure that they're checking in terms of if there are industry standards in place for industry practices in place for making certain types of claims about recovered energy or efficiencies, that they are sort of staying within the scope of those types of existing standards. There are definitely things that businesses can do in the agricultural space to get a little bit more confident about how they should proceed. A bit of context might be helpful, just to talk about what the new provisions look like. There's a couple of them. One is that it's now prohibited within the greenwashing space to make a statement about a product's benefits for protecting or restoring the environment or being environmentally friendly. If that statement isn't based on an adequate and proper test, meaning that there isn't, you really need to have some support that is, objective, that really allows you to put forward a clear and accurate, well-supported statement about the product. That's with respect to products and services. Mm-hmm. The second is the one that's garnered even a little bit more controversy because it's a similar provision stating that you have to back up your claims and make sure that you've got adequate and proper support for a claim about the environmental, I'm going to say environmental friendliness just for simplicity, with respect to a business or a business activity. And here, the standard is adequate and proper support in accordance with internationally recognized methodology.
Mm.
So here, where you're talking about a business activity, I don't know, energy recovery or efficiencies, that kind of thing. Something that's a practice within the an activity within the agricultural space. The standard to know whether your support for the statement or claim is good enough is internationally recognized methodology. And so that is very broad, and it's not defined in the Act what internationally recognized methodology means. It's fairly vague in that
Yep.
in that sense. And that is the phrase and the sort of the standard that has caused a lot of concern, because businesses in all sorts of different sectors are not necessarily in a position to know, okay, well, which internationally recognized methodology and is the one that I think is good enough. Is the Competition Bureau going to agree? Are stakeholders on the other side going to agree that this is this is acceptable? And so there's a lot of concern in that area. I can say that the Competition Bureau has just announced this week that it is running a consultation around these very provisions that I just referenced, and the comments are due by the end of September 27th, and so there should be a lot of we can expect a lot of industries, including potentially agricultural associations and businesses, weighing in on what that should mean or what it should not mean, the scope of that, so that they have more certainty, more confidence about how to back up claims.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. Is the result sort of what we see in the oil and gas sector, where companies are, we're not going to claim anything? Because what I've seen in some of the Alberta press is the oil and gas sector saying, like, this is a way to prevent a sector from talking about some of the things that it's doing or that are good for the environment, and the financial consequences here are too high. The legal costs are too high to have to prove our claims, so therefore we're just not going to say anything. Is that kind of the direction that potentially this heads, especially for industries that are not as financially equipped to fight some of these battles?
Yeah, so there are some real concerns here, because the new provisions focusing on greenwashing are accompanied by some very significant potential penalties, financial penalties that are as high as 10 to 15 million, the greater of 10 to 15 million per offense, basically per claim that's gone through the system and found to be unsupported, or 3% of global revenues. So those are very, very significant financial penalties.
Wow.
And also there is the possibility, given the new structure under the legislation, for stakeholders who want to challenge some claims to have private access to the Competition Bureau, or the Competition Tribunal for deceptive marketing. And so before these provisions were brought into force, the access to the Competition Tribunal was solely through the Competition Bureau, meaning only the regulator could bring these types of challenges. And now that avenue is open to associations or private parties who want to bring a claim directly themselves.
I'm going to give you two examples. I just picked two random examples in agriculture. Okay. First one, Dairy Farmers of Canada. On their website, it says, Across Canada, dairy farmers are working towards a greener future. They're taking sustainability steps in the field to improve soil, support biodiversity, and prioritize regenerative agriculture. Canola Council, okay, Canola Council of Canada says canola and its production system are currently part of a healthy agricultural ecosystem that has evolved to enable biodiversity, sequester carbon, and produce more canola per acre than before as part of our blah, 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 blah. Okay, so both, those are two examples. There's a lot of them in the industry making the claim, hey, we sequester carbon. There's a lot of companies on products saying this, this improves soil health. Those are just small words, big meaning. That seems to me like now we're going to have to, okay, how much and how so? Those kinds of things. Am I reading too much into this?
I think it's fair to say that those types of claims are going to be included in the scope of the types of statements that are going to attract more scrutiny.
Yeah.
And those claims are made not only because they are positive for business in terms of showing the efforts and the investments that they're making in this area, but consumers want to know as well. Consumers want to hear those messages, and so it's important, going back to what you mentioned earlier about sort of a chilling effect in this space. It's important for messages like that to continue to be made, but there is a new concern around precisely those types of claims because there isn't yet the type of guidelines and certainty around what's acceptable and not. I should add that in 2008, the Bureau had developed a set of fairly rigorous and detailed guidelines around environmental claims together with the Canadian Standards Association. And it was a very helpful document, but the Competition Bureau has archived it and said that it's no longer the formal set of guidelines anymore. And so there's a bit of a void, both around that internationally accepted methodology statement and in terms of good solid guidelines for folks to turn to know what they can continue to post on their websites, to say on social, even to say in their annual reports.
Yeah. So this isn't a for sure thing yet, but there's a consultation happening, or what are the next steps? Give us an update before we wrap up.
Sure. So the provisions are now the law. The next steps include a consultation that the Competition Bureau is running to develop some more guidelines in this area about what standards are acceptable for supporting claims. And we do expect there to be a heavy involvement from all sorts of different industries in those. And once the Competition Bureau has completed that consultation, we do expect the Bureau to publish a new set of guidelines to address things like what is a proper prior test to support these claims. And we hope that will include examples of types of claims that could be made that would be acceptable, and what international standards might be up to snuff in terms of supporting those claims as well.
Well, Margot, fascinating stuff. I really appreciate your insight here. There looks to be, there hasn't been a lot of talk about this in the agricultural industry, so clearly there's some bit of a wake-up call you've provided here for stakeholders. Thanks so much for joining us here today on Real Ag Radio.
Thanks. It was a pleasure.
That was Margot Patterson. She is a counsel with Dentons in the Regulatory Practices Group based out of Ottawa.